Let's get to Penn State, which was a 6-touchdown favorite over their team against FIU today. Now, again, this is all about contextualization, right? They were favored against FIU. They didn't cover the number, but it doesn't mean that they didn't play well. You mentioned, you're expected to win. When you're a team, this is 2 straight weeks that they've been big favorites over Nevada here and then over FIU. What's the general consensus on a football team to win these games?
You're supposed to win. That's the most important feat, right? No question. But in college football, the way you win is also important when it comes to our job, right? Analyzing and predicting what we think will happen moving forward. This game was 34-0, but guys, when you watch the game, it was a lot closer than the final score. And the reason why is because of the offense being a bit stagnant. In particular, Drew Allar. Drew Allar today, guys, 200 yards through the air. He averaged 6.1 yards per throw. 19 of 33. He completed 57% of his passes. That's not first-round production. That's not, quote-unquote, best quarterback in college football production. So something seems to be a bit off, guys. So look what he did week 1. Great graphic there. He didn't really blow you away. He was more efficient, but he didn't really blow you away like you would think he would against that level of competition. We just talked about Tommy Castellanos. Granted, he played against East Texas A&M. Not the same level as at FIU, but you would think when you look at the expectations for Penn State, the expectation for Drew Allar as an individual passer, this is where you find your stride. Completing below 60% of your passes is not Drew Allar-like football in terms of the potential that we know he has. So it was a good day. They ran the ball well. Defense played dominant football, but you need more from your quarterback because you guys remember, in the playoffs, that game against Notre Dame, he did not look good. And it seems like he hasn't really found his rhythm just yet, and hopefully he can kind of get things going because they need him to be at their best in a few weeks when they see Oregon.
I know that about it, man. And if Penn State is going to have an opportunity to run the table and make a deep run in the playoffs, it's going to be because of the way Drew Allar plays. And I think everybody always falls in love with his numbers, his measurables. But when it comes down to playing in big games, he hasn't quite shown up. And, quite frankly, when you look at James Franklin, there's been question marks there about him and his ability to get it done in big games. And obviously this not being a big game, but this being a game you should have went out and won decisively, and you're not winning it in a convincing fashion. Yes, 34-0, it sounds good on paper, but when you watch it, It's much closer, like B-Mac mentioned. And I think a lot of the questions before was, well, who does he have to throw to? Well, they went out and got some pretty good wide receivers in Kyra Hudson and Trevor Penny. So they got some wide receivers to put the ball in their hands that can make plays, and he's just not quite seeing the field enough to get the playmakers the ball. So that is cause for concern. They won comfortably. I think you go back to the drawing board, you figure out some things from an offensive standpoint, and you try to get him to, take that next step maybe next week. But it's going to be a long season if they continue to play this way.
So let's piggyback off of what you said there, Beanie, because we do have the Nittany Lions scheduled. They got Villanova, but they do have Oregon in 2 weeks. So that's going to be a big matchup against the Ducks, who are playing Oklahoma State and are the big favorites here. So you mentioned the potential of running the table. You also mentioned going to the drawing board. So again, this week, what will the emphasis be here for this Nittany Lion offense?
I think it has to be getting Drew Allar to see the field in its entirety. Too many times I think he locks in on one side of the field and maybe doesn't go through all of his progressions, seeing other open wide receivers. And right here, when you have the playmakers that he has, that shows. The devil is in the details.
B-Mac, let me give you defensively in the Nittany Lions through 2 games so far. What's the outlook on that group?
Dominant. Dominant. FIU had moments where they could have made this thing extremely sticky, but that was effaced because of how dominant Penn State's defense was from start to finish. And Drew Allar needs to take every member on that defensive team out to dinner collectively, because when the offense was a bit stagnant, they made sure FIU didn't have any glimmer of hope to try to make this thing interesting for 4 quarters. So this defense, and you never question, under James Franklin, that's something you won't question, right? Defensive production, defensive consistency, seeing a mindset. That's something that they do, and it's still there in place right now as we speak. But to Beanie's point, eventually, your star quarterback has to deliver like a star. When you are considered a potential first-round prospect, we need to see that first-round production. And games like today is where you need to be able to surface and show up. You cannot have a game where you're completing 57% of your passes. Normally, that's losing football. But because of how stout the defense was in the running game, it didn't matter in a matchup like today. But to your point, in a few weeks, Dan Lanning and the Ducks are coming to town. And you cannot afford to have a game where you're completing below 60% of your passes and expect to win against that type of organization.